Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Here.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Here.
Ms. Laird,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Here.
Mrs. Ray.
Here.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting held November 30th, 2020, please?
So moved?
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Ray. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. Next, walk-on items. John, I think the only thing we need to talk on for walk-on items, we mentioned it at our last meeting that our second meeting of this month would fall on the Monday between Christmas and New Year's.
Correct.
28th. So on the 28th, it was just brought up as an attention thing. If there isn't anything pressing, with it being so close to the holidays, sandwiched right in the middle there, and everything, is there, I guess, in opposition to not having that meeting, if there's nothing pressing to be put on an agenda to have done?
I checked with my directors, and they really don't have anything that we believe is timely or time sensitive.
Since that meeting is posted on our website, do we need an actual, we have to take official action to cancel it?
I would think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do have to do a public notice of that.
Right.
Okay.
So anyone's thoughts on that? We just wanted to open it up for discussion to see, and if we need to, if we did want to cancel that meeting, we could put a motion up tonight and go ahead and do that, but it's up to all of us. Any thoughts or anything for anybody? Any opposition to stopping that if there's no pressing thing that needs to be on the agenda for us to take action on? No? Okay. Well, I would make a motion then that we would go ahead and cancel that second meeting of December on December 28th. So that way we would just resume our regular schedule then. Second Monday of January would be our next meeting
Yes.
after tonight.
That's the 11th, yep.
Could I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Motion's approved, so that meeting on the 28th will be canceled. If we could get that posted for public notice that it was canceled.
Done.
Then we'll meet again second Monday of January, whatever that.
The 11th, yes,
The
sir.
11th of January, okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Price, and appreciate the board's sensitivity to that holiday there. That's going to be a good time. I think we're trying to get away from the office a little bit. Just some good news, I think, in our world with the vaccines. And I was on a Zoom today with our health commissioners, actually Seneca County and Sandusky counties, and teachers are officially tier 2 on those who would get vaccinated or have opportunity for vaccination. So that still will be a couple months, and it'll be months. But I think at least it's on the radar. I think obviously the tier 1A or tier, I think 1A, 1B are the frontline, first responders and nurses and frontline caregivers are starting. And I think that's just very exciting for us. I think I can way down the tunnel see a little light. So I saw a meme last week. It says, yeah, there's a light in the tunnel, but it's Darth Vader with a lightsaber. But I know, sorry, I diverge. But anyway, there's some good news coming, and I just have felt some optimism breaking through. So just a report on our semester. I know I emailed you these numbers, but we had 1,057 students, 1,070 some students, all virtual for this first semester. We really weren't sure what what the response would be getting students back in. Some families that try to get back in, some out for this whole first semester. So during that switch, we had about 300 return out of that 1,000. 300 of them returned to seated learning. So they're now in our hybrid model. Then about 100 chose to leave the seated learning to be all virtual. So we had like a net 200 students return to the classroom for our second semester. About 870 students will be joining us in classrooms. I'm sorry, 870 all virtual students for the second semester. And we did ask them to make a semester commitment to that again. So that's that. One thing we're really worried about was staffing. We just envisioned if we had a real imbalance, because you can imagine those kids coming back in are coming from our virtual classrooms into our seated classrooms. Well, we have dedicated virtual teachers, K-5, who were teaching those kids. We were really worried about a huge imbalance. We did have to move one teacher who was an all virtual teacher back into a seated classroom to manage the transition, and that worked out pretty well. Now, we do have some classes that are not ideally balanced. We worked with our union to try to make sure it was okay, but this, you can imagine, that drove up some of the numbers of our seated classrooms because the virtual classrooms are a little smaller. So some of those kids, just let's say pick Krogan third grade or wherever, of those 25 kids, maybe 8 of them came back into the classroom. We had to separate those into the existing seated classrooms. So the virtual classroom is smaller, the 2 seated classrooms are now larger. Now, it's all buffered right now with our virtual model because those kids that are seated are still in 2 halves. So it isn't an issue right now at all. But if we would, Lord willing, get back into a full seated model, some of those classes will be more imbalanced than what we like to do. But we have agreed with our union that we did the best we could. We did shuffle some. We granted some inter-district transfers, did some things to try to balance that as much as we can. Nothing, high 20s at most, if we would get back into a contained classroom. But it varies kind of all over the district. But I just want to let you know we did do the best we can. One of our primary goals was to try not to move kids away from their teachers. So if they've had that teacher for a semester, we really tried hard to keep that child in the same classroom with the same teacher, just for the learning curve and readjusting of relationships and everything else. So we got through that. We knew it would be a little messy. It wasn't as bad as we had feared. At least it wasn't as bad as I had feared. I'd worried about almost being a whole shuffle like first day of school again. But luckily it wasn't as much, since we did have some go back out. That helped us keep things relatively balanced. So just kind of report on that. Anybody have questions on that? That was a pretty big hurdle. Yes, ma'am.
I do. As a non-educator, I really appreciate your opinion on this. I imagine changing classrooms is quite daunting, but I wonder if there's an imbalance. Might there be, I don't know, a classroom with smaller attendance? But I don't know. Is there another place in the facility, a little larger, that would allow for social distancing for a short period of time for those classes that have an abundance of students? Is there somewhere else in the facility that could better accommodate them than just the?
One thing that I have noticed a lot of I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. One thing that I know the teachers are doing a really good job of is using that studio, if you're familiar. This is really a K-5 issue, because in the 6 through 12, that was a much smoother issue. We just, basically, those numbers are fine in the middle and high school. So it really is a K-5 issue. And I've been really impressed. Every time I go into a classroom or a studio area in elementaries, there's always another adult out there working with some kids in that studio area, which helps alleviate some of the pressure out of those classrooms. Also, there is, if you think about it, in those 3 classrooms around that studio, one of those is empty because those kids are at home. So there is spaces where we can help spread kids out, but that's easier said than done. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of work to try to manage that. But right now, I think if we're hybrid, we'll be fine. It'll be a little bit tougher if we get all in again, just with the numbers.
But you feel that the facility would accommodate further spreading for those grades that
better than our old
have the
buildings would
better
have, for sure.
concentration of students if those teachers become uncomfortable?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would too, if we will make sure kids are safe. And it's one of those things, if it tips, we would do a little more drastic. We'd move some kids, and it is uncommon to move some students, but we didn't want to change teachers. And I guess that's
right,
the goal. Or change schools. I mean, busing them over to other buildings. I mean, it would be a real task. So
Well, chances are we're going to be hybrid starting the next semester anyway. I mean, because our county would have to change drastically in colors,
Yes.
multiple colors,
yes,
by the beginning of January.
that's right.
Which
And even Bethany
chances
Brown,
are is not going to happen.
right,
So once we start the semester, if we're red,
right in
we're
January,
going to be hybrid.
there's our quarter.
Right. So, I mean, we've got a whole 9 weeks of, more than likely, we're going to be hybrid the first 9 weeks
Right.
of the second semester anyway.
I asked Bethany Brown, our health commissioner, today about that. And what she pointed out was that the number that's 800 per 100,000, I can't remember, it's the occurrence, or I don't remember the right word. But that number would have to come down to 100 before we would change colors, regardless of the other indicators. So I think you're right, Mr. Price. The chances of that happening in 2.5 weeks is
Slim to none.
slim to none, right? I think with where the numbers are right now. Yeah.
So if nothing else, it would give, even though we're getting an influx of kids coming back into the classroom, it's still going to be hybrid. So at least 9 weeks, because we know we're not going to drop back to all in if we start
Right.
at the hybrid. So
Right. Good
9
point.
weeks of getting
Have some
feet
time.
wet, getting things organized.
And
a
maybe
little
the
bit.
world will be a better place in March too. I mean,
Right.
in the sense that it's safer and
Right.
we aren't
And-
quite
yeah, and
as
right.
worried about,
Hopefully.
the
Right.
6 feet and everything else.
Yep.
Yeah. True. Thank you. And that's really, I just want to remind you too, at our January meeting, we'll talk about board committees and representation. I just want to remind you, everyone, what those are. Obviously, we'll vote for a president and a vice president. For the public's sake, today we are assigning a president pro tem, which will be just a temporary president who will begin the January organizational meeting, so that then we'll have the election of officers officially. But there'll be president and vice president. There's a legislative liaison, OSBA delegate. There's a alternate delegate to OSBA. Mr. Hammond has an audit and records committee. There's policy committee, curriculum quality control, and our health and wellness. So those are the slots we'll need to fill. Also, we'll need a representative to Vanguard Sentinel as well. So I just want to kind of get those out there if you guys start thinking about maybe what you'd like to do for our meeting in January. So I think that's all I have in my report. Anybody else have any questions about anything?
Excuse me, could
Yes, Vi.
you kind of send us some synopsis or email of
Absolutely.
all these?
Yeah.
So we
So you have
can
them?
kind of look at it.
Will do. Okay. Mr. Price, may I continue?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. My recommendations in the community section, we have some donations, a lot of generous people. Christopher Hall's Awards Foundation, Kiwanis Club and Rotary Club came through with some hot chocolate for our elementary schools. The Lift Churches, and Gina Reed. I just want to especially mention Gina Reed, one of our employees, and she's been pumping out the mask like a machine. She is something. Just fabulously generous. So if I could have a motion to accept those donations, please.
Can I get a motion to approve item 1, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray, Mr. Price,
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much, Board. Turn the page there. At the top of the next, we have Facilities and Operations continued. The first two need action. The policy meeting minutes are just for your notice, so if you just kind of understand what we're doing here. But for the first point, we would like to appoint a president pro tem. Like I said, this is just it's about a 10-minute office. It's just your role will be to start the meeting in January on the 11th, long enough to elect a president, and then as soon as that president is elected, that president then would take over even the rest of that meeting. So if there'd be some nominations and an election of a president pro tem, please.
I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just going to open it up for any nominations to appoint, or for a president pro tem.
I'd like to nominate Alex Gorbetz.
And I'd like to second it, if that's possible.
Okay. All right. We got a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz, sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes, congratulations, Alex. You will be the president pro tem in our January meeting.
Your moment in the sun. Mr. Gorbitz. Here it comes.
brief moment.
It's very
I can't
brief.
be in the sun very long.
We know that about you. That's right. You and the sun don't get along. All right, then for actually IRA's organizational meeting, a tax budget hearing, also January 11th, just a official notice for that. We need a motion for that as well.
So can I get a motion for that we're just having it?
Yes, basically just that we're having it on the 11th. This
Okay.
is the official,
Okay.
we're having the
So
meeting.
can I get a motion to approve that we will have our organizational meeting, tax budget hearing scheduled January 11th, 2021 before our regular board meeting, please?
So moved?
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gorbetz. Any discussion?
And actually, that motion is for both the tax budget hearing and the organizational meeting,
Okay.
which will also go out to the public on that announcement.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, who was the first on that?
Ms. Laird.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved.
Very good. Thank you very much. Item 2 are the new computers. These are actually staff machines for our teachers. For those who've been around a while, a few years ago, before my time even, we bought nice machines for all the teachers to use, and they're interactive with the boards and everything. So it's about time. They're 8 or 9 years old. They're just kind of coming apart on us. So we run out of our support and warranties and everything else. So that's a permanent improvement fund expenditure. Then starting with item 3, our first readings for the policies that had just come out of our policy committee. Those are 3 through 7. I'd like to point out then between items 7 and 8, then we switch to second readings. Those are the ones that we did here last time. So then item 8 through, it's actually quite lengthy, 8 through 26, board are the second readings for those policies. So this total motion goes from item 2 through item 26. It includes the computers, and then first and second readings of policy.
Can I get a motion to approve items 2 through 26, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gorbetz. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion?
We have 2 items. First, Mr. Detweiler,
Yes, ma'am.
if the equipment about to be replaced is anything like that laptop that we've had to suffer through at times, I'd say it's due.
No,
Oh my goodness.
I don't think it's that bad, but they're probably close. What I hear in the office is, we've got another one swelling. I hear that in the hallway, and apparently the batteries are starting to go, and after you've charged and recharged,
Oh, they do.
they start to puff. And Andrew, am I right? Is that accurate there? Yeah, so Andrew does a lot of fixing those machines.
He's like, please replace these.
Yeah, so, but that's actually, the one there is like
That's
really bad. Yeah.
It definitely is.
It's
And along the lines of technology, with the Bring Your Own Technology policy, I'm curious, how many students are wanting to do that and in need? Are we at a 1-to-1 yet on electronic devices? How
No,
far
not-
off are we of that?
Yeah, we are not. We're really about a 2-to-1 if you count students and devices in the district. So this would help us, give us that option. I mean, unfortunately, we aren't there yet. So it would help us fill that gap.
Okay.
And it just gives us really a way to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gorbitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. In the student and staff achievement, we just like to bring your attention to the health and wellness minutes. Excuse me. Item 27, resignation from Ashley Wharton as newspaper advisor. And on the next page, Kimberly Myers is resigning as administrative assistant to curriculum. And in item 28, you'll see Kimberly is being hired with IRA, as classified payroll and benefits coordinator. If you'll notice, item 30 actually should be 29 in sequence. We had a edit there, so if I will say item 29 for item 30, if you see we missed a number there in our edits. So item 29, the status changes for Michael Baker and Timothy Warren, both in the bus transportation center. Item 30 then, 2 leaves of absence, Sarah Beth Cooper and Nicholas Maley.
Can I get a motion to approve items 27 through 30, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Ray. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. In our curriculum section tonight, just draw your attention to the meeting minutes of our Curriculum Quality Control Committee. And that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to the fiscal part of it, report of the treasurer, please, Ira.
Thank you. End of November, November 30th, our gap audit was completed and posted. Also on November 30th, they started the state financial audit, so that'll go for probably the next 2 to 3 months. As we just discussed, Kimberly Myers, who's been in curriculum, will be moving over to fill Megan's place as Megan moved up to the assistant treasurer. And I gotta tell you, being down to 3 staff, my people have just been extraordinary in stepping up to the plate and getting stuff done. The superintendent hasn't missed a paycheck, nor has the
right.
custodian.
Thank you very much.
Bears.
Much appreciated.
And there's been a lot of dedication. I've just been very proud of them. It's been a very congenial, cohesive group. I look forward to Kimberly's being a part of that. The state reached out to us about 3 weeks ago, and along with my state financial audit, they are going to do a performance audit. That performance audit will go over the next 6 to 8 months, just kind of a review of how we operate as a district and any suggestions that they may have to help us improve our operations. That audit is no cost to us. And right now we are just gearing up for the calendar year end. So I've got new people in my payroll. I've got new people doing AP. Both of those are year-end time crunches for us. So we'll be busy for the next 6 weeks or longer. But anyway, just kind of bring you up to date on that. I'm going to ask for your approval of the November financial report. I promised John that I'd make sure it was ready for this meeting so we didn't have any reason to meet on the 28th.
I leaned on him a little bit. Yeah.
Never hurts.
Not a lot of change. We just kind of moving along where we're at. I will remind you that tangible personal property is down about 400,000. I'll remind you that state district income tax is down about $500,000. And interest on investments, because of the low interest environment that we are in today, it hurts too. If I just look at our year-to-date results, we overspent almost 300,000. If I annualized, or if I broke down my budget for the year, I was projecting about an 875,000 overspend. So just looking at that annualization piece versus a loss of 875 versus 300, that's good. Don't mean to get anybody's hopes up, that's just a statement as where it's at today. As I mentioned last time, I am concerned long-term where we're going financially. With that, I would like your approval of our financial report. Also, item 32 is an increase in appropriations for our data communication lines of 10,800, and also item 33, workshop meeting for Mrs. Ray.
Can I get a motion to approve items 31 through 33, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gorbetz. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Espiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray, Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. Pages are sticking together. Moving on to board communications and information. Mr. Gorbetz.
Did we do item 34?
Well, yes, the number got off of it, Alex. So, we changed the numbers.
Oh,
later on.
okay.
So, when we said 31, 2, and 33 is our final item. Sorry about that. Does that explain it? Okay.
We'd moved on to advanced math.
I forgot we skipped the number.
Sorry about that.
Well, as an educator, one of the greatest things to make you feel real good is when you get a lot of compliments from your students. And as a superintendent, my guess is you get the same feeling when you get similar commendations and platitudes from the community. And Mr. Detweiler drove a bus recently.
Yeah.
And one of the more heartwarming threads on Facebook after it became public that you drove a bus were dozens of complimentary comments from the community at large. And so I'd like to congratulate you for,
Very nice.
and to also commend you for driving a bus.
It's actually the only part of my job that makes any sense anymore, Mr. Gorbitz.
You didn't get
That
lost.
is, it's just take the kids home. Yeah, the rest,
Long
the
as
other
you
rest of
didn't
my
get
job is
lost.
just messy. Yeah, but I actually enjoyed it. It's just another contact with students that I don't get otherwise. So.
Thank you.
It also gives me, if I may, just a real appreciation for what those drivers do every day. I mean, you know, all of a sudden there's a railroad track, and then you've got to turn, and you got to stop, and then there's construction, and I almost took out a car on South Street. I mean, it's
Wait, don't say that at a public
no,
meeting.
really.
it's just a tough job, and I just have so much respect for those
Right.
people that do that every day, and just do it flawlessly. So
Now the roads are gonna clear every time they hear
they
Mr.
better.
Detweiler's on the bus.
They don't keep me as last for no reason. I am the last choice for a reason.
Anyway, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Ms. Laird?
I have a few things. Regarding the state audit, it wouldn't surprise me if audits like that ramp up statewide, just out of being fiscally responsible from the state level and the part of government that's supposed to be about serving people. I really do think some of those audits will come out of a sense of service to the smaller divisions to see if there's something that the auditor of state's office can do to be of assistance. I don't know if any of you have met Mr. Frank LaRose, but he really is a good man. And he has a heart of service, military guy. And so people assume sometimes that audits are punitive. And sometimes when you see deficit spending and things like that of concern, an audit can be a hand for help. And I think that we need to approach some of the audits that are probably going to be coming in that spirit, because I think that's the spirit in which they're given. You know, no one, Mr. Hammond, no one likes to hear that, you know, we have a deficit situation, but I want to congratulate you, your staff, and everyone in the district. Everything everyone does has a financial impact, and you only improve things when everyone is mindful. So to shrink that deficit of what was anticipated by almost $500,000 in the toughest time any of your staff has had to do their job, how commendable
Yes.
to everybody. So thank you. And for some meetings, I had been coming up with something that the pandemic will do to shape these children for their historic part of time for the better, because we hear all the negative. And you'd mentioned the vaccine, so I just want to comment on that a little bit. Don't think my daughter will mind me sharing. She's a nurse practitioner, and her sister-in-law is a pharmacist for the University of Cincinnati and has done some of the research with some of the companies to assist with the vaccines. And, obviously Whitney wanted to be as educated as she possibly could on that. And she's going to have to make recommendations at some point to patients and what should she do. And her sister-in-law gave her some wonderful research and a lot of assurance, and let her know that the method to come up with these answers so quickly has actually been around for a very long time. Yeah. The science itself is not new, and I think the general public assumes that it is. And she explained a lot of times what takes things so long in getting vaccines from research to distribution isn't the research, and it isn't the knowledge and the comfort, it's the funding. And it's, all the litigation that has to go through for everything. And she said it's the first time that literally scientists, legislators, everyone, business people, everyone had skin in the game. And the entire world came together. All those professionals worked together. There's never been, in her opinion, more sharing of information in a less competitive environment than what she had seen in that part of the world before. And, had let Whitney know, not only does she recommend it for the community at large when you compare the risks of COVID versus the risk of the vaccine, but absolutely everybody in her family she would want to have that. So I wanted to share that. And that leads me to, because of this pandemic that these children have grown up in, this is an example where I believe they're going to have a better value of collaboration than any generation before. Any generation before, we do tend to be competitive. And I think they will value that. And as a result, I believe that they will change the world beyond what generations before them have done. That's all I have.
Mrs. Espiritu.
I want to thank the donors for their donations. I know everything that everybody donates is very helpful. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to mention that I seen Mr. Detweiler shared all over Facebook with him driving the bus. So thank you. That's very helpful to keep the operations going, and you're willing to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Ray?
Well, I guess I'll be more talker. Well, also, as Mrs. Griffith said, I'd like to thank our donors, our generous community. We have a very, very wonderful community, and they care about our kids and our district, our school. So thanks for all and everything. Nothing is too small. It's all worthwhile and helpful. So thanks to our men, and then also I'd like to give some kudos to our treasurer and his department. I mean, you came in a storm and with all kinds of things going on, along with a staffing kind of storm with some of the long-term, employees moving on for retirement or whatever, and holding us together. I don't know what kind of glue you used, but it was just thank you for a job well done in keeping us and keeping all this stuff. Also, I'd like to thank our administration. This year, 2020, has been a roller coaster year, and I've heard you say many times it was crazy town.
Crazy town.
Okay. So with all the different changes and all the different things that have gone on with our student and staff and in and out and the unknown, you've just been awesome. And our district has continued to operate. And also, I'd like to thank our board members. I think this has to be one of the best boards ever to work with. And this year's, with all the things that have been going on, and everybody's, working hard, and we're not getting rich, but, it's just, you've just been a real pleasure to work with. And with that, I'd also like to say, I wish everyone had a very restful and happy holiday season, and safe. Stay safe, but enjoy. And that's Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of our board members. That's all I have to say.
Well, I'll just reiterate, thank you to all of the staff of the school district for this year, since this will be our final meeting for the year. Who'd have thought back in February that this would have been what would be happening right now? So, and it just, you kind of get, I'm not in it day to day, but so you kind of think, yeah, it's just plugging along. Well, my sister-in-law happened to be over, who's a teacher here at the middle school, and she got a email or text message from a student that said I was just placed on quarantine, so he's going to miss this week right before Christmas and everything. And she's like, all right, I need to start figuring stuff. And all of a sudden it hit me again. Oh, yep, here it is on a Sunday, and her student has to be out, and so quarantine is an issue. And it's just, for everybody who's in it every day, how quick things can change and how much you have to just work on the fly.
Yeah.
Man, I think, in the food industry, you kind of have to do that anyway, but to just think like that and just be very flexible and just, all right, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to get through this and wait till the next thing to hit, kind of is kind of how it's been. So thank you to all the staff. And in Ira, in your office, being shorthanded, having people moving and doing different positions and everything else to get through all of this, because all this stuff affects everybody that's a staff member of the district, not just the teachers and the bus drivers and everything. You guys have a lot more to deal with on your plate too when it comes to everything. So thanks to everybody. So with that, like Vi said, since this is our last meeting, I hope everybody has a great Christmas break. We only have week to go with kids, and then staff will be off shortly after that. So a couple weeks off, good time to be at home and rest up and take a break and take a breath.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. So with that, we do need to go into a quick executive session under item B as in boy. There will not be any board action taken after we come out of executive session, so we'll adjourn, but there won't be anything done afterwards. So I'd like to make that motion. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Gorbitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Motion's approved. We will be moving into executive session under item B. Gentlemen, we are